Today we're going to be talking about ecology in further detail. The first section we're going to go over is population, ecology, and growth. A population is a collection of individuals of the same species living in the same geographic area. A collection of populations of species in a geographic area is known as a community. An ecosystem consists of the individuals of the community and the environment in which it exists. Ecosystems can be subdivided into abiotic and biotic components. Biotic components are the living organisms of an ecosystem, while abiotic components are the non-living players in an ecosystem, such as weather and nutrients. Finally, the biosphere is the entire life-containing area of a planet, all communities and ecosystems.
Three more terms for you. The niche of an organism, which consists of all the biotic and abiotic resources used by the organism. 2. Population density, which describes how many individuals are in a certain area. And 3. Distribution, which describes how populations are dispersed over the area. Now there are three main types of dispersion patterns that you should know: clumped, uniform, and random. Clumped dispersion patterns are individuals who live in packs that are spaced out from each other, as in schools of fish or herds of cattle. Uniform dispersion patterns are individuals that are evenly spaced out across a geographic area, such as birds on a wire sitting above the highway. Notice how evenly spaced they are. And 3, random dispersion patterns are species are randomly distributed across a geographic area, such as a tree distribution in a forest.
Population ecology is the study of the size, distribution, and density of populations and how these populations change with time. It takes into account all the variables we have mentioned already and many more. The size of the population, symbolized by N, indicates how many individuals of that species are in a given area. Demographers study the theory and statistics behind population growth and decline. The following is a list of demographic statistics you should be familiar with for the AP Biology exam. Birth rate is the offspring produced per time period, highest among those in the middle of the age spectrum. Death rate is the number of deaths per time period, the highest among those at two extremes of the age spectrum. The sex ratio is the proportion of males and females in a population. Generation time is needed for individuals to reach reproductive maturity. Immigration rate is the rate at which individuals relocate into a given population. Emigration rate is the rate at which individuals relocate out of a given population.
Now we'll move on to population growth and size. Biotic potential is the maximum growth rate of a population given unlimited resources, unlimited space, and lack of competition or predators. This rate varies from species to species. Now the carrying capacity is defined as the maximum number of individuals that a population can sustain in a given environment. Because of the environment in which we live, numerous limiting factors exist that help control population sizes. A few examples of limiting factors include predators, disease, food supplies, and the waste produced by organisms. There are two broad categories of limiting factors. There are density-dependent factors and density-independent factors. Density-dependent factors include food supplies, which run low, waste products, which build up, and population crowding-related diseases, such as the bubonic plague, which just stink. Density-independent factors have nothing to do with the population size. Examples include floods, droughts, earthquakes, and other natural disasters and weather conditions. There are two main types of population growth: exponential and logistic. An exponential growth creates a J-shaped curve as if there are no limitations as to how large it can get. Logistic growth creates an S-shaped curve, putting a cap on the size to which a population can grow.
K-selected populations are populations of a roughly constant size whose members have low reproductive rates. The offspring produced by these K-selected organisms require extensive postnatal care until they have sufficiently matured. Humans are a fine example of a K-selected population. R-selected populations are populations that experience rapid growth of the J-curve variety. These offspring produced by R-selected organisms are numerous, mature quite rapidly. They often require little postnatal care. These populations are also known as opportunistic populations and tend to show up when space in the region opens up as a result of some environmental change. The opportunistic population grows fast, reproduces quickly, and dies quickly as well. Bacteria are a good example of an R-selected population. Survivorship curves are another tool used to study the population of dynamics of species. These curves show the relative survival rates for population members of different ages. Type 1 individuals live a long life until an age is reached where the death rate in a population increases rapidly, causing the steep downward end to the type 1 curve. Examples of type 1 organisms include human and other large mammals. Type 2 individuals have a death rate that is reasonably constant across the age spectrum. Examples of type 2 species include lizards, hydra, and other small mammals. Type 3 individuals have a steep downward curve for those of young age, representing a death rate that flattens out once a certain age is reached. Examples of type 3 organisms include many fishes, oysters, and other marine organisms.
A symbiotic relationship is one between two different species that can be classified as one of the three main types: commensalism, mutualism, or parasitism. Commensalism is when one organism benefits while the other is unaffected. These relationships are rare, and examples are hard to find. In mutualism, both organisms reap benefits from the interaction. One popular example of a mutualistic relationship is between acacia trees and ants. Parasitism is when one organism benefits at the other's expense. A popular example is a mosquito.
Competition is when both species are harmed by this kind of interaction. The two major forms of competition are intraspecific and interspecific competition. Intraspecific competition is within species competition. This kind of competition occurs because members of the same species rely on the same valuable resources for survival. When resources become scarce, the most fit of the species will get more of the resources and survive. Interspecific competition is competition between different species. Predation is one of the negative interactions seen in communities. One species, the predator, hunts another species, the prey. Not all prey give in to this without a fight, and the hunted may develop mechanisms to defend against predatory attack.
Now on to defense mechanism. Aposematic coloration is a warning coloration adopted by animals that possess a chemical defense mechanisms. Predators have grown cautious of animals with bright color patterns due to past encounters in which a prey of a certain coloration have sprayed the predator with a chemical defense. In Batesian mimicry, an animal that is harmless copies the appearance of an animal that is dangerous to trick predators. In cryptic coloration, those being hunted adopt a coloring scheme that allows them to blend into the colors of their environment.
Some animals have patterns called deceptive markings, which can cause a predator to think twice before attacking. For example, some insects may have colored designs on their wings that resemble large eyes, causing individuals to look more imposing than they truly are. In Mullerian mimicry, two species that are aposematically colored as an indicator of their chemical defense mechanisms mimic each other's color scheme in an effort to increase the speed with which their predators learn to avoid them. The more often predators see the speed with their predators, the more often they learn to avoid them.
Coevolution is a mutual evolution between two species and is often seen in predator-prey relationships. For example, imagine that the hunted prey adapts a new character trait that allows it to better elude the predator. In order to survive, the predator must evolve so that it can catch its victim and eat. On to succession. In the process of succession, the shift in the local composition of species is in response to changes that occur over time. As time passes, the community goes through various stages until it arrives in a final stable stage called the climax community. Two major forms of succession are primary and secondary succession.
Primary succession occurs in an area that is devoid of life and contains no soil. A pioneer species, usually a small plant, is able to survive in resource-poor condition, takes hold of a barren area such as a new volcanic island. The pioneer species does the grunt work, adding nutrients and other improvements to the once uninhabited volcanic rock until future species take over. As the plant species come and go, adding nutrients to the environment, animal species are drawn in by the presence of new life. These animals contribute to the development of that area with the addition of further organic matter. This constant changing of the guard continues until the climax community is reached and a steady state equilibrium is achieved. Bare rock succession involves the attachment of lichen to rocks, followed by the step-by-step arrival of replaced species up to the climax community. Pond succession is kicked off when a shallow water-filled hole is created. As time passes, animals arrive on the scene as the pioneer species deposit debris, encouraging the growth of vegetation on the pond floor. Secondary succession occurs in an area that once had stable life, but has since been disturbed by some major force, such as a forest fire. This type of succession is different from primary succession because there is already soil present on the terrain when the process begins.
Now on to trophic levels. Photoautotrophs start the Earth's food chain by converting the energy of light into the energy of life. Chemoautotrophs release energy through the movement of electrons in oxidation reactions. One type of consumer is a herbivore, which feeds on plants for nourishment. Another consumer, the carnivore, obtains energy and nutrients through the consumption of other animals. A third consumer, the decomposer or detritivore, obtains its energy through the consumption of dead animals and plants. The distribution of energy on the plant can be subdivided into a hierarchy of energy levels called trophic levels. The primary producers make up the first trophic level. The next trophic level consists of organisms that consume the primary producers, the herbivores. These organisms are also known as primary consumers. The primary consumers are consumed by secondary consumers, or primary carnivores, that are the next trophic level. And these primary carnivores are consumed by the secondary carnivores to create the next trophic level. Two more terms to cover are food chains and food webs. A food chain is a hierarchical list of who snacks on who. A food web provides more information than a food chain, so it's not so cut and dry.
Deserts are the driest land biome of the group. Deserts experience a wide range of temperature from day to night and exist on nearly every continent. Savanna grasslands, which contain a spattering of trees, are found throughout South America, Australia, and Africa. Savanna soil tends to be low in nutrients while temperatures tend to run high. Taiga, this biome characterized by lengthy cold and wet winters. It is found in Canada and has gymnosperms as its prominent life plant. Temperate deciduous forests are a biome that is found in regions that experience cold winters where plant life is dormant, alternating with warm summers that provide enough moisture to keep large trees alive. Temperate deciduous forests can be seen in the northeastern United States, much of Europe, and eastern Asia. Temperate grasslands are found in regions with cold winters. The soil of this biome is considered to be among the most fertile of all. Tropical forests are found all over the planet in South America, Africa, Australia, and Asia. Tropical forests come in many shapes and sizes. Tundras are the biome that experiences extremely cold winters during which the ground freezes completely. Warm water biomes are both freshwater and marine water biomes occupy the majority of the surface of Earth.
The last topic we have to go over is biogeochemical cycles. The carbon cycle begins when carbon is released to the atmosphere from volcanoes, aerobic respiration, and the burning of fossil fuels. Most of the carbon in the atmosphere is present in the form of CO2. Plants contribute to the carbon cycle by taking in carbon and using it to perform photosynthetic reactions, and then incorporating it into the sugars. The carbon is ingested by animals who send the carbon back to the atmosphere when they die. In the nitrogen cycle, plants have nitrogen to consume thanks to the existence of organisms that perform the thankless task of nitrogen fixation, or the conversion of N2 to NH3 or ammonia. The only source of nitrogen for animals is the plants they consume. When these organisms die, the remains become a source of nitrogen for the remaining members of the environment. Decomposers chop at these organisms and break down any nitrogen remains. The NH3 in the environment is converted by bacteria into NO3 or nitrates. This NO3 is taken up by plants and then eventually by animals to complete the cycle. Denitrification is a process by which bacteria themselves uses nitrates and release N2 as a product. Now lastly, in the water cycle, the last thing we have to go over is the water cycle. A considerable amount of water evaporates each day and returns to the clouds. Eventually, this water is returned to the earth in the form of precipitation.
Thank you for watching. Good luck on your exam.